But we really haven't heard from Alexis yet, so we'd love to hear a little bit about you. And whenever Barry, you want to start the meeting, I'll let you take it over.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks so much for the introductions, everyone. I'm just kind of popping into some of the various IPRTF meetings to get a feel for the faces in the room and some of the things that are going on. My name is Alexis. I am currently a program director with Lifeline Connections, same as Hannah. The program that I currently oversee is the Men's Low Intensity Residential Unit. You'll hear me refer to it as LAR if I talk about it because it's a mouthful, but I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be here with everyone and do some of this work. So thank you all for that.
Well, that's just great to have you aboard. Okay, go ahead and start recording, Jill.
Recording is started.
Okay, before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Again, thanks for everybody being here today. We have kind of a light agenda, it looks like. We're going to start out with the Justice Project Implementation Plan report out from Crossroads.
Great. Thank you, Barry. Okay, I'm going to just say a couple of things, which most of you, I think, should know, but just in case. The first is that we do have the county has gone ahead and hired the owner rep for the jail and BCC design process, so that's super exciting. The second thing is that I just wanted to let you all know that the JPOPS committee meeting that's coming up here next week is going to have our second session with Village Reach. And as you may all recall, that's part of establishing the plan for how we're going to monitor our progress and ultimately lead to the creation of the data dashboard, right? So anytime you guys want to pop in, and I know some of you have been there, it's been awesome. And I have to say, working with Julia is really a treat. She is really a good thinker, an excellent listener, and yeah, she's just really showing up for this project. And then the third thing I would like to highlight, can I share screen, Jill? Great, okay. Is we are now online. So if you haven't yet seen this, at long last, can you see the website?
Yes, we can.
Beautiful. So we've got our reports up. It's so great. So if you remember, we get the IPRTF gets these quarterly reports from Kayla at the exec's office, which go through all of the things that are in motion and, you know, successes that are happening already in the implementation plan. And then these get boiled down into these reports that are more user friendly. So here's the quarterly report. And Jill and Jenna have been helping get this website to work. So look at how nice that looks. You've got the 2-page Justice Project. If I clicked on this link, it downloads here. Actually, it's more than 2 pages. Sorry about that. But anyway, take a look. Click. It's lovely. And then here you can see how nice and clear it is, right? So it's talking about how we can get our updates. You can click there. You can click here for the year 1 progress report. And then just an opportunity for people to sign up for updates for the IPRTF and the JPOP. So there's this idea will, you know, hopefully just have more people paying attention and tuning in. So anyway, we're making good progress. Also a shout out to Heather and Chuckanut Health Foundation for their help, which is the graphics to get these all done. And we will be this next week getting out the word to try through social media and probably a press release to start driving people to the site so we can hopefully break through that. I have no idea what's going on. I don't think anything's happening, when actually a lot's happening. We just need to make sure that people are getting the information. So that's our primary goal right now. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, it's a good segue. So the question has come up in the last little bit here about the difference between the owner's rep and village reach, and I'm just trying to understand the difference. And just if I don't know who the right person to answer that question is, but if there could be some clarification, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, totally different. So Barry, would you be game to describe the owner's rep and their responsibility and where we're at with that?
Sure. The owners rep are a direct representative of Whatcom County in the procurement stage. So they would be helping out with things like developing RFQs and RFPs for architectural work, for construction work, for kind of the build stuff. Whereas Village Reach, I believe, is more around the communications side and data. I'm not as familiar with what exactly they're doing as I am with what the owner's rep is doing, but the owner's rep is also going to be in doing some public engagement. And Holly, Heather and I and Peter actually have a meeting tomorrow with STV, that is the owner's rep, to start coordinating how that public engagement looks and kind of the who's doing what. So we're not duplicating efforts. So that's happening. But they are separate in that Village Reach is also responsible. I mean, not Village Reach, but the owner's rep is also responsible for doing the capacity analysis, which will be starting in this month in March. It's expected to go to about July, I think, before the actual all the numbers are crunched. But that should give us the size and hopefully the cost, if we can, just multiply size by building costs. And then we should hopefully have a price by midsummer.
One thing that they do have in common. Oh, I'm sorry, Barry. I was just going to pop in.
That's kind of how their timeline looks right now. What was that, Peter?
I was just going to say the one thing they have in common is both of them are working towards data dashboards, but they're different data dashboards.
Yeah, that's true. There'll be a construction kind of one, and then there'll be the one that the criminal justice side that Village Reach is working on. So, and that's good. I would love to be able to see that so the public could. One thing we did yesterday, just kind of as an aside, we approved the new correction standards for the jail. And that will soon be available online for the public to go in and be able to see what those standards are. And so there's going to be full transparency from the sheriff's office as well. So everybody sounds like they're really working towards some common goals as far as transparency goes. And it was really good to see that plan get done, because we've been kicking it down the road for a few years now. And there was a lot in the old plan that talked about chokeholds and some of the real old school tactics that they used in corrections. So that's been updated now. And like I said, hopefully that soon will be available for the public.
Fantastic. Yeah, Tank?
Yeah, I didn't know if Barry wanted me just to give a quick rundown.
Oh, I didn't see it, Tank. Yeah, that would be even better.
So the jail standards was, I guess, documented here in the county code, chapter 1.28. But about five or 6 years ago, the state legislature had changed the RCW for the jail standards and pretty much said that those standards were obsolete, and each county was mandated to change those standards. So the sheriff's office had asked for a multitude of extensions, and in early 2024, our council essentially stated that they would give one more extension for that, but after that, they wouldn't give any. So we spent the last year working on those jail standards. One of the issues that we saw with the old jail standards is that those standards were actually policies. So then maybe it was, I don't know, 100, 200 pages or less of policies. And the actual jail standards within the county code shouldn't be a policy document. It should be a document with the standards. And then once you have that document, it would refer you to the actual policies. So that's what we did. It went from less than 150 pages or so to our actual policy document, which is about 1,000 pages of policies. But we also use Lexipol, which is a common tool used for policies in law enforcement here on the West Coast. Lieutenant Daryl Smith worked his butt off on this, and right now we're just finalizing those policies. But also, this is also in line with two other things. One, there's legislation right now around jail standards on the state level. But in addition, in July, the week of July 14th, WASPIC, the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, they'll be here for 4 days doing a LEMAP assessment of the sheriff's office and our corrections. So they'll have 8 assessors here on the ground, essentially going over all of our policies, procedures, and the way we do things. So all this is coming together at a good time.
Thanks, Tank. I know the council was sure appreciative of the work you guys put in over the last year to get that done. So anyway, Holly, but back to you.
Yeah, I see 2 more hands. So Dan and Marty, you want to chime in?
Yeah, just real quick. Sheriff, can you just define real quick about the when we're talking about standards, like what does that encompass? I'm just trying to understand that a little bit better so I can explain that to my constituents.
Sure. It encompasses a lot of things, Dan, but just for example, it gives direction on when we could use force. It gives directions on the amount of not the amount of education, but it gives us direction on the services that we provide. It gives direction on when a person is booked, how we actually classify a person into what areas. It's very comprehensive. If I had it in front of me, I would certainly read them off, but I could send them to this group because we have the actual standards electronically. However, just so you know, last night the council directed us to use some more generic pronouns in the document instead of like he, him, she, and things of that nature. So we're actually correcting that. But essentially, it's about how we conduct business, particularly with inmates inside the jail.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Marty.
I just wanted to touch on the second part of Dan's question and have one of my own. Dan, Village Reach's scope is the performance measurement plan for the implementation plan. So really looking at what are the outcomes and metrics for each of the 15 implementation plan projects. So quite separate from STV. And then my question is, it sounds like these Tank's saying want to have these standards be accessible to the public, which sounds like a fabulous idea. And then I heard about STV having a dashboard, and I'm just curious about how these different public-facing pieces can come together either on the Justice Project site or with links to each other from wherever they're housed. So if say if the jail standards are going to be on a sheriff's department website, that we link to it from the Justice Project web pages. So anyway, it's just a communication between us, and then a communication outward kind of little dance. I think would be good to do as these pieces become available, and we want to get them shared.
Well, that's a good point. I think, that's one thing though, that conversation will start at least on the STV side on how that coordination is going to look. So I think luckily we're thinking about that, and we do have to think about that outward piece as well. Okay.
I do want to give Dan just a taste of just some of the things that's in 1.28. So it talks about staff positions, training, records, emergency procedures, population levels, use of force, emissions. I talked about classification, the orientation, how we release and transfer, transportation, staffing, supervision, inmates' rights, discipline, grievance procedures, medical services, healthcare policies and procedures, health screening, access to health, healthcare training, medication controls, healthcare records, and it goes on and on.
Dan?
And just follow up real quick, Sheriff Tank. Will that all carry over to the new jail facility, and that will that carry over to the behavioral care center as well, or how does that all work?
Absolutely. So the purpose of having the code in a way that every time we change a policy, we don't have to change the code. Before, it was set up that if you change one word in a policy, then you had to ask for a code revision. So these policies through Lexipol will carry over. Of course, with the new facility, some of those policies might change, as they should if it needs to, if it needs to be changed. So I think this is a good start. And lastly, with the LEMAP assessment that's coming, that's huge. And it really it's going to give not only our agency, but all the stakeholders in the community an idea of kind of where we are as an agency and where we need to go.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Tasha?
Are you, I missed part of that. Are you, the LEMAT, is that to become accredited? Is that what your goal is with this, Tank?
Absolutely. So that's the first step in seeking any type of accreditation. It's not the first step that an agency has to take, but it's the first step that I believe is best for our agency, since we hadn't been accredited in over 22, 23 years. So yes, this is the first step, and really, as Tasha, as you know, it's going to be a guide map.
Best of luck to you. It's a pain, but good job. It needs to be done. And a follow-up to that, regarding standards and policies on a behavioral health center attached to the jail, since it's kind of a new concept, are there any standards for those already?
Yeah, so there are standards already. We are already accredited by, here, I have to actually, it's a long acronym. But on the medical side, we're already accredited. In fact, we just received our reaccreditation last fall. So I don't think that's a big lift, but that's going to also be incorporated, which is a separate accreditation from WASPIC. WASPIC doesn't do the medical accreditation, but right now we have a contract with the accreditation, the medical accreditation authority, that's actually helping us with our jail nursing issue. So I think going forward, just keeping that relationship with the accreditation authority that we have now is going to help us. And I'm not trying to take over this meeting, but I just wanted to clarify what Barry was talking about.
Oh no, I'm glad you were here. That's very helpful. Holly, did you have anything more on the Justice Project from your end?
No, I don't. think unless there's any other questions, we could move on.
I was just wondering if our J-pop co-chairs, did you have anything you wanted to share today, or just waiting for our soon-to-be next meeting?
I don't really have anything. I think we're kind of looking for a space to do an in-person meeting for April, which I think would be exciting.
We've got one.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, now the suspense is building. Where is it?
Marty?
The Wiku Education Center on Holly Street,
Oh, okay.
Holly and High.
The bank, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely big enough.
Yeah.
Move to the King County Legal Intervention and Network of Care field trip that I went on. I'm just gonna go over some big picture stuff because we're doing our debrief tomorrow. So we'll kind of circle around and get all the details. But I'm looking to see if there's anyone that was with Hannah. You weren't with me, were you? Hannah Fisk was along.
Yeah, I think Hannah Fisk.
Yeah, Maya just joined. Maya was along. Anyway, last Monday before last, we went down to Seattle to visit the LINK program, and it was myself, Maya Stark, the Eric Sigmar, Eric Ritchie. We had Hannah Fisk. Who else did we have, Maya? Vanessa Martin.
Sorry, Caleb Erickson.
Yeah, Caleb.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. So we went down. We had a tour of their administrative facility, which they fed us lunch in there. They were very gracious hosts. And then we got to tour. They have a housing element to their program. So it's a diversion program that's a prosecutorial diversion. So it's the referrals are done out of the prosecutor's office. One of the things they had was called respite housing for folks that were in the program that just didn't have anywhere to go. There wasn't a lot of beds, but they were just for this program. I think one was 7, one might have been 9. So a total of maybe 15, 16 beds total. But it was a critical part of their program that people had a place to go and they could be moved through a continuum. Maya,
Yeah, it seems like the prosecutor, like the LINK team has to create an exit plan before the prosecutors will agree to release. And that might be to transitional housing, or maybe they have to wait a couple days until something else opens up, whatever. But there pretty much always has to be like a plan for release. But then the prosecutors dismiss and they don't refile. They couldn't name one case where they had ever refiled. And the municipal prosecutor who was involved was like, they seemed very, they had very much bought into the philosophy that if there was a belief that this matter should be diverted, because that was really the means to justice, that was really the best way to address the person's issues and the circumstances of this case, that they were like, it's gone. Like, we have diverted it and we are not going to bring it back. So if they pick up new charges, well, they may or may not charge the new stuff, but they would never bring back the old stuff.
and it wasn't because they couldn't.
Right. No, they just were like, but it seemed like a philosophical thing. Like they were like, we've made a decision here. We used our judgment, we used our discretion, and we're going to stand by that decision and let go of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember they said they had one that they were considering and then they decided not to. And that's over the life of their entire program. So that's incredible. Peter?
I did hear a little bit about this from Eric Ritchie when I met with him last week. He indicated that it was a pretty small program for King County. And I was just wondering, do you know the figures, how many people are going through this? And then I'm just curious about how is housing must be very central to this concept. Is that right? And
Yeah.
were you thinking about our True Blood? I don't know that much about it, but I do know that we have money coming to us for the True Blood class. And is that something that you, Barry, and Maya were thinking, hey, this might be a way we could integrate it? And so
Yeah.
anyway,
That
those
I
are my
think was
questions.
that was the vision, I think, is that I understand that we didn't get that allocation of money this time
Mm.
because of some other issues that I don't know. I don't know where that's at, but it's optimistic that we will get it at some point. And yes, I think we've always thought this is how we would integrate it.
Yeah.
Use a link like program for those beds.
And they were using their True Blood money at part of a braided funding scheme because they had, they needed more resources than what they could get out of True Blood.
In terms of the scale, I think someone was sending stuff to Melora, I think, about more numbery stuff.
I think that's what we're going to hear tomorrow when we do our little debrief.
Yeah.
I remember the number 70 for some reason.
Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, for the size of King County, right? It wasn't a huge number of people, but the resource, it's a high resource program, so. And people aren't in it for that long. So while their capacity might be 70, I don't know how many they're turning over in a year because they do let them go. They don't monitor. I mean, the reason the prosecutors get reports back, not to refile, but to sort of inform their future decision-making for this population. So they might see people repeatedly or see people in similar circumstances, and they want to know what's working. And so they're getting reports back from the treatment agencies and kind of tracking people as they work their way through the LINK program, but it's more in just in an educational way for them to just keep refining the conditions or the services, it seems. Tasha.
I guess that was, you're starting to touch on the question I had is yes, they don't refile on charges they've already decided to drop, but what is the recidivism of the crimes that are they continuing to commit crimes and that way?
Yeah, I think that's some of the information that they were supposed to send to us that I don't have yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a lot of questions just like that as well.
But I will say this has been years. They've been doing this for years, and the prosecutors who are doing it are very bought into it. So they were like, they had mushy answers around that. They were like, recidivism is tricky because it's like if we delay, even if we're delaying someone. So say someone is coming back every 2 months, every 2 weeks, but we get them in this program and we delay them coming back into the system for a year or 2 years, that they really believe that is a benefit to the community and to the person. And so they felt that these hard numbers on recidivism were not really going to capture what their experience was with the program necessarily, but I haven't seen the numbers, so I don't know what they say.
Peter?
But just to clarify, for us here in Whatcom County, where we don't have any housing in progress for something like this, housing is absolutely central and critical to the success of this LINK program. Is that right?
It is, and they had 2 large family style homes that they were using. So, multiple bedrooms, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they preferred that. They thought that's a much better model than any kind of isolated apartment kind of a strategy, or a larger community setting but people had their own rooms, but they eat meals together, they cook together, they even had a gardening space. So it wasn't like they had to go out and spend a bunch of money and build housing. They bought something, and they did some extensive remodeling in the one we toured, because it was designed
like a boarding house,
Yeah, but it wasn't like a huge housing project. Tasha?
Sounds kind of like that place over in the Columbia neighborhood. it's not a, it's a, for elderly or disabled persons that have a community house. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but do you know, like, if with the standards, like the LINK program, did they, mental health, was that an issue? Was this, you know, was that one of the focuses, or was this for addiction issues? I mean, were there a certain type of category or issue that they were trying to focus on?
Yeah, the threshold is that they have had or are very likely to be involved in the competency restoration process. So they either had a history of it, or the circumstances made it clear that that was the issue. There were different ways that it could come in, but mental health is sort of like the line, but there's definitely issues with dual diagnosis for sure, and substance use that has to get addressed.
Yeah, and if they were true blood class members, official class members, they were definitely considered, you know, kind of at the top of the list. Dan?
Yeah, just real quick, 2 points. Tasha, I think the facility that you might be referring to is on William Street in the Columbia neighborhood, and it was originally like a birth center when it opened in like 1900-ish, and then now it's a place for folks with disabilities and seniors to live. And then I think that's what you're referring to, and you may not be. And then my question is, does anyone know the status of the DOC, the two multifamily residences up off of oh my gosh, it's Chestnut, and I forget the cross street, but
Garden. It's on Garden Street.
Yeah, do we know what's going on there?
I do not. Does anybody?
Is that the graduated reentry or something? Is that
It's a reentry program.
Yeah.
For people exiting DOC, and it's like a halfway. They used to be referred to as halfway houses.
Oh, it's called the Gateway or something, right, Dan?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, it'd just be interesting to understand, like, you know, where that's at in the process. It was in the news, it was in the media probably 2 weeks ago. If that could be repurposed to some degree, I'm just throwing ideas out here. So, but anyway, I just want to bring those pieces up.
Great. That's a great idea, Dan.
Yeah. Any other questions on the LINK program? We'll, as we get more details, we'll definitely keep everyone informed. If not, move to items for the March and upcoming task force agendas. What do we have so far, Jill, for next month? Or this, I guess it's this month.
So far, we have the February agenda after the February meeting was canceled. I've been working with Peter and Heather and Holly and Marty on adjusting it somewhat. So I will leave it to those four to go into a little more detail. I can screen share if you like, Holly and Marty, your amendments to the agenda if you'd like.
And I have a couple things to speak to for March. Yeah, since we didn't have, it was unfortunate timing that this LINK trip overlapped with our IPRTF February meeting, but that's the way it goes. But we had a really good agenda set, and like to just move that forward to March. In transitioning from the LINK discussion we just had, the reason I went and spoke with Eric partly was I wanted to hear, you know, what his thoughts were about LINK, and it had come up in a previous meeting that we should, because in the March agenda is the vote on the BCC work group. I wanted to see whether there was, you know, were we going to have two work groups? Was there going to be some overlap? I know that Eric had said to Barry that he was interested in a work group, so around LINK. And so I just wanted to clarify that. In my discussion with Eric, he is all for the behavioral care center work group, wants to get it going. He doesn't feel like there needs to be two different groups. It's we should really just start this IPRTF work group on the BCC and move that forward.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know that that got resolved. So
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
Yeah, and one other thing to say on that subject, he has, as I've mentioned in these meetings before, I gave him a trove of documents that we have from a variety of jurisdictions who have either implemented a behavioral care center or are interested in doing so. And so he has sent that trove of documents to his civil department, and they are doing the work to figure out, how do you take this model that originated in Tennessee and implement it here in Whatcom County. So he's doing some good work about that, and I look forward to the March meeting where we can get this work group going. And then I think it's important that really it's the stakeholders such as Maya and Tank, and looking at the others on this call. We need some behavioral health folks there this is a work group really for them, and we don't need to add any members that don't need to be there, and then get a lot done. It's a good place for a conversation if the IPRTF can play that role of making a container for that conversation. That'd be a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Peter. The other agenda item is booking reduction and interim solutions. That was scheduled to be a presentation from the sheriff's office. Sheriff Tank, I don't know if you're hearing, if you guys can still do that presentation on March 31st, if you want to do that, or one of your staff.
Absolutely. So you certainly you could plug us in, and
okay,
not me, it would be either Under Sheriff Harris or Chief Erickson, but it would definitely be one of us.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. And Tank, as I've told you, I think on a phone call, there was a lot of, when we brought this up in, I think it was steering committee, there was a lot of energy around that conversation. So I think we're going to have a pretty robust, everybody's interested in hearing from you here, and we'll have lots of questions.
Maya.
Thanks. I've talked with the jail reentry folks, Lifeline Connections, and I think they also could speak to impacts they're seeing based on the changes of booking restrictions. So I don't know if someone wants to invite them, but I know they've been collecting data on the number of people with serious mental illness who have been being booked and released, and the increases they've seen this calendar year with those changes. And that might be an important aspect to the conversation.
Thank you, Maya. Alexis Haas is our new IPRTF member and works at Lifeline Connections. Alexis, is that something that you would have some information on to share with the IPRTF at their meeting?
I don't have that data, but I can certainly connect with folks who may.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be my team, and we're working on that, working with Eric Sigmar to kind of gathering that data and seeing what they need for prosecutorial diversion. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll have something on that.
Okay.
Hey, Hannah, I would like to see that data too.
Absolutely.
And Jill, I know that there was another item that we were planning on covering, which was I was very interested in hearing anything that we could from Chief Mertzig about the Bellingham Police Department use of SCORE, and she was very interested in being there. Of course, we canceled the meeting, so we'll want to reconnect with her and have her there or somebody to speak to it.
Yes, that was the next item on my list, was the SCORE facility use. After that was a discussion of implementation plan project 7, building a 23-hour crisis relief center, and work group spin up discussion. Is that something that's still going to stay on the agenda?
Well, Dan, are you still on the call? Yeah. Dan and I believe and Stephen have made arrangements to address this within their committee. And Dan, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I can. I mean, So yesterday we had the joint behavioral health and justice systems meeting, and I think we got things sorted out in terms of like, figuring out work groups and such. Speaking specifically to this point, there was a work group that was formed for Division Street crisis facilities and other facilities, and I'm the convener of that, along with members Arlene Feld, Danny Carroll from Whatcom Community College. She's a director out there. Hannah Fisk, Stephen Traff, who's a Customs and Border Patrol leader, and then Tori Sandos, who is a director of the SUDP program out at Whatcom Community College. So we've got a team, and we can contribute in whatever ways that makes sense. And I think that meeting yesterday was and there were two other committees that were subcommittees that were formed. So I think that we're going in the right direction when it comes to getting work groups formed and ready to go to make recommendations to the committees that they're reporting to, and then to this committee, and then to the task force and county council. So I think we're moving in the right direction here.
Great, Dan, thank you. So maybe I'll just take that off as an agenda item and you can report on it through committee reports.
Sure.
And then that brings us to the last agenda item, was review of the draft 2025 IPRTF calendar, which Holly and Marty have worked up and is in your meeting packet for today, and I can screen share that, and if you like, and I will let Marty and Holly take over on that discussion.
That'd be great. Marty, you want to pick that up?
Sure. So this draft calendar that you see is a first crack at trying to lay things out for the rest of the year. Granted, the months toward the end of the year are very slim right now because figuring things are going to have to shift around here. But I just want to review and I can share screen, Jill. I'll put it up on mine, be a little easier. I just want to do a quick review of the structure of it. So the meeting dates, IPRTF meeting dates are on the left. In the middle are the proposed agenda items for each meeting. And they are categorized in 3 categories. They're either a question, a proposal, or a report. I'll just define those. So, question is something like an issue that's come up and we want to explore it. A proposal is something that needs to be voted on, basically. And a report is a presentation. Holly, you want to refine that? Okay. So I put little R's, P's, and Q's by each agenda item so that it'll be easy to kind of see what type of item it is. And then I plugged in likely presenters in the farthest right column. And so what you're looking at right here is January, which already happened. So let me move down to March. This is what we just talked about. And I think that what we just said is that this item here under, oh, sorry, interrupting myself to say the agenda items are divided into 4 categories also, and those are focus topics, which focus topics, reporting, IPRTF business, and committee/work group updates. Committee/work group updates is at every meeting. The others may or may not happen at a meeting. So we've already said focus topics for the March meeting are going to be talking about booking restriction, reduction, and interim solutions, and the SCORE facility. IPRTF business will be to vote on the proposal to form the BCC work group. And then this part here about the Crisis Relief Center will come off the agenda, and we'll just have that under committee work group updates, okay? And So maybe Dan, there were a couple of questions related to that crisis relief center discussion, which we should figure out if you're gonna report on those, or if we are hoping to have Kayla at that meeting, who might be able to give us some updates about estimates for operational budget and potential funding sources, the issue she raised at the January IPRTF meeting. And then if we are going to have, I think we won't be having this section here about other options. That'll go away. But this part we should think about. Okay, then we'll look at this calendar and get any feedback from the whole group. That's the idea. First, I'm hoping for feedback from all of you. If there are places where you see your name on the right, or like a time for your committee to report, and you think that really would be better in a different month, that would be the kind of feedback that would be super helpful to get. Or if something's unclear on here, that would be helpful. Just a little bit more on this. I plugged in the executive office quarterly reports, which we should be getting every quarter, the month after the quarter ends. So that would be Kayla. Also hoping for a legislative update in April, because it will be toward the end of the legislative session, but I haven't heard back from Kayla about scheduling that. Peter, do you want to say something right now, or shall I just cruise through the rest of it?
It's fine. I can wait.
Okay. And we hope to have the full action plan ready to present at that April meeting, which means getting from each committee what your plan is. Does that sound doable? That would be Dan, Raylene, Birdie. In time for the April meeting?
Yeah, I've got questions, but I'll wait until the end.
Okay. Let's see. I think that is, I think the only other thing I would like to just highlight is that I put the Legal and Justice Committee time for having a discussion with the IPRTF in June. That's like more than a committee update, but if there are things you want to report on from the work you're doing, questions you have for the IPRTF, that would be a time for that to happen. Birdie, do you want to jump in here?
No, I can wait until, I just wanted to get my place to have a comment.
Okay. I have Behavioral Health Committee in July. And then Index, I was figuring that would be here. I put it in May. Okay, sorry, I skipped over you. Yeah, Birdie.
So my comment about that is I think that would be better in June. May is a little early. We only have one meeting between now and May because it meets every other month. And we're working somewhat hand in hand with Julia and Village Reach, which will be completing in June. So I think we'll have more meaningful report if we either delay it till June or even July, but right in that.
Okay. And Raylene, would you like to Legal and Justice to go in May instead of June?
Well, I think some of the topics that we're going to be discussing from Legal and Justice are so commingled with behavioral health that we should probably be together. And I don't know if we want to put us as a joint report, but that's something that I think I need to talk to Dan and Stephen on, because some of the work groups include people that are on behavioral health and legal and justice on some of the stuff we discussed yesterday. So I think when we're reporting on the joint, that we're doing it all at the same time in June, I think that makes sense.
Okay, so sounds like maybe June will be a time for all three committees to present. How about that? Okay. All right. And I did plug Julia's work in here, hoping for data dashboard discussion in July. That with all these, there's people to check in with about scheduling, but thank you for making it easy by doing that committee presentation scheduling right now. Peter, what did you have?
Oh, I had a couple of things. One was for Birdie, and it looks like she's temporarily gone. One was for Dan. Dan, I see that. Could you, Marty, could you scroll back to March? Dan, I was just thinking, your subcommittee or your committee has taken on 23-hour. It's one of the critical thing or two critical things I think that have come up in this group for discussion around that is hearing more from Kayla around how IPRTF, your committee in particular, can be helpful in this conversation. And the other is the strong statements that Seth Hall and Kim made around Peace Health and their potential role as providers in 23-hour. I am really interested in hearing those. It doesn't have to be in our March IPRTF meeting, but if you want it to happen there, it's a good group to, all those players are there. So I just want that on your radar, that could happen in March. Birdie, now that you're back, I just wanted to encourage you, if your schedule for your committee is hampering you because it's every 2 months, you should feel free to change the scheduling. And yeah, so that's totally up to you.
The only thing that would keep me from doing that is to see what happens when the data work group gets launched. That's the combined legal and justice and behavioral health that we talked about at the meeting yesterday. So we'll see how that plays out and what the role of the index committee is with that. Your point's well taken. I think we need to address the issue more than once every 2 months. So,
and the last thing I wanted to say was if we could scroll to, I believe it's April. April, yes, and Deacon Center utilization. So this is something that that I really like to have us go through. Now, a year ago, we had a meeting around this topic, a little over a year ago, in the behavioral health, legal and justice joint meeting. I think it would be appropriate to have it in the large group and really dive into these issues, have law enforcement and EMS back to speak to their experience with Ann Deacon. We need updates. We no longer have a crisis stabilization committee, and so we're not getting reports. I'm really curious how things are going with this important facility, and just wanted to bring that up to everybody. And if you have anything to say around this topic.
Did Jill have Jill, do you want to say something about that?
I do. For the June agenda, it sounds like there will be all committees presenting. I'm thinking it would be a good time also to have a discussion on whether or not to resurrect the Crisis Stabilization Facility subcommittee of the IPRTF that is currently on hiatus through the end of June, I believe. So task force will need to make a decision on whether or not to resurrect it or keep it on hiatus, or option 3, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I had that in May, but we could definitely move it to June.
Oh, okay, May's fine. Oh, there it is right there. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Dan, did you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I've got stuff, but Heather's not talked yet, so I just want to give her the just defer to her.
Mine's brief. Thanks, Dan. I love having a calendar. Thank you so much for all the work you did to put this together. And I'm wondering if one thing I was thinking is for our goals for the year, if there's agenda items that tie directly to a goal. For my mind, it'd be nice to have a little key next to them that kind of reinforces the like, why are we talking about this? I know not all of the things will be directly related to a goal, but I think a lot of them will be. And I think it will help when we're looking back at and developing an annual report to be connecting to our purpose and goals for the year.
That is a great idea. Can definitely add that in. Thank you. And while you're mentioning reports, there are places here where the reports are mentioned. Holly and I and Jennifer Moon are going to be doing the annual report, and that is due at the end of June. So we'll be coming to you in May and again in June. Actually, we'll be coming to this group in April, and then the IPRTF in May and again in June for approval of the annual report. And then we have the year-end report that happens, that's due at the end of December. So we'll be coming to this group in October. Actually, we'll be coming to the IPRTF too for themes. And then the draft in November, and then approval in December. So that's on this as well.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, I've got a number of things here. I just want to throw this out to the group, and it's probably to the co-chairs, I would think. So what would be helpful for me for the behavioral care center, for the 23-hour rather, is to have some kind of pro forma funding profile that would include rather a ledge update. The session ends on April 27th, theoretically, unless they go into continuance. So to have some understanding of how Olympia is going to be helping us with this, monitoring Medicaid, the horizon with the talks at the federal level of impacts on that might be cutting that, and how that would affect the funding viability of the 23-hour center and anything else that we're doing as well. And then some lane definitions, and what by that I mean who's doing what. Like, so we've got a team on the behavioral health committee that is committed to doing recommendations for Division Street, but what I've heard in this conversation was that there might be some, prosecutors are interested in being involved in that, and that's great. I just want to know where the lane is for us. And then a request to the executive's office for bandwidth, and that would include possibly having a ledge analyst to help us out with some of these broader questions in terms of working with our not just our local contingent, the 40th and 42nd, but also with our broader representatives and senators in Olympia. And I will stop there.
So I know one of your questions about the 23-hour and the prosecutor. The prosecutor is going to be involved in the BCC, that in the prosecutorial diversion side. So not so much the 23-hour. So I think you can feel free that lane is probably pretty open for your committee.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. We throw these terms out a lot, and it just gets a little muddy.
Oh, I know.
I just want to make sure that we're making, that whatever I'm instructing my team to do, that we're doing it the right way. That's really it. So
sure, Peter.
Barry, this is really a question for you. Dan has a really good list there. It's really all directed to Kayla. Kayla needs to, that's for her, pretty much all of those items. What's the best way for Dan to get those requests to Kayla as far as you're concerned and address them for our next meeting.
So Holly, what have you guys been doing? I know one of your basic things was doing some liaison work. Does that include any of that kind of work with the executive's office, or is that something that we should do from the council office? You can think about it. You don't have to. I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
And if that's a co-chair role, I'm happy to take that on. Maybe we can coordinate after the meeting, but I think Dan's questions are really good. I want to know the answer to those too. And let's move that forward.
Okay. Anything else on agenda items for task force meetings? Heather?
I think Peter and I chatted last week, and this is a little other business, but also related to agendas, and I'll lower my hand. I think that it's clear there are a lot of factors that have changed even since the public health and safety tax passed, in terms of the federal landscape, the sales tax revenue, the potential with Medicaid issues. The funding landscape, even with that revenue stream, has shifted dramatically, potentially. And I would like to recommend that for sure the FAB does some scenario planning. I think it would be really great to have, what is our scenario one of adjusted sales tax revenue? What can we actually afford to build? And what do we need to communicate back to voters? Because no one's going to get their wish list likely anymore, or all of it anyway. Like, there's going to need to be trade-offs and compromises to honor the ordinance that was approved. And so I think there needs to be some reality checks around what's scenario one, what's scenario two, what are the trade-offs, what can we afford? And I think it's a big enough discussion and related to our BCC goal and our jail goal overall with the IPRTF that I'd love some thought partnership with Barry, with Holly, with Marty, with all of you as steering about what pieces of that big question are JPOP questions to weigh in on, what pieces are IPRTF or committee questions to weigh in on, and what pieces are FAB, and really be clear about the lanes and have a managed discussion around that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, totally agree. Tasha?
Well, and kind of following up with Heather, I know there's a finance committee, so is there an invitation to them to come to one of, I don't know, the March or maybe the April in-person meeting where we can get a financial picture of where we're at from their point of view since they track all that?
We can certainly put that forward. The FAB meeting is tomorrow afternoon. So Heather and I and Peter will be there.
Yeah, I mean, the three of us should be able to report. And that does make sense, Tasha.
Anything else on task force agendas, or we can roll right into other?
Jill here. I just want to check in with Holly and Marty. You're going to revise your list here and get me an updated one to put in the full IPRTF packet.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
And did I just hear that FAB should be included as a committee report, occasionally at least, when when there's been a meeting?
I would say that's a good thought, but let's hold that thought just for a bit. Well, find out some clarity around how that might work.
And we'll just have committee / work group reports. So if you want to make one for FAB in that slot of the agenda, it's there.
I mean, the co-chairs or myself could even bring that forward, you know, as a just a report from, yeah.
I was hearing it a little bit differently, more following up on the conversation that Heather and Tosh had picked up on, which is kind of where are we at now with the finances of the jail and behavioral care center, and what kind of scenarios might that look like, and that the FAB could come and maybe be a voice presenting on that topic. That's how what I was hearing is less about a regular committee report and more about kind of getting us so that we could have a conversation about it. Did I not understand that? Is that what you guys were thinking?
Yeah, I'm not sure we need to do a regular report, but and I just want to point out that FAB is not a committee of the IPRTF. It's separate. And the sands are shifting. There's so much chaos in the system. It's going to take us a little time to figure out how the tariffs and the Canadian boycott of United States is going to affect us, and decisions around Medicaid. Oh my gosh, there's just so much
municipal bonds, the interest as far as tax exemptions, that adds 2 basis points to the bottom line on loans.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a lot of stuff in the way that we have to wade through.
Yeah.
Okay.
We won't really have anything probably solid to report on until after that capacity analysis is done, because that's key to coming up with some numbers.
Okay.
But I think that also supports what Heather was saying as far as the scenarios.
Yeah. Heather, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was thinking for just the process, I think that there may make sense at some point for a joint conversation with, where IPRTF and FAB are talking together. And I think it just depends on how it's structured and managed and what would actually be helpful, who has helpful information to share, who needs to be in the room together, but also who are we accountable to, public facing, right? Some of us are here as citizen representatives, et cetera. And so I heard Tasha's more as that, like, where's the place where we have the conversation together, and then what pieces are ours to have and generate and inform different things as different bodies. Separately, though, in terms of asking for an update from FAB, I also feel like there can be a little informality of just when there's things to share, let's share them that are relevant and pertinent to each other's work. And there's enough cross pollination, I think, of people to do that. And in that vein, I actually think the IPRTF, I would love to look at the calendar a little bit and think about, we should get an update from the Behavioral Health Fund from time to time too. Just like, what are you guys doing with the Behavioral Health Funds, or even the Healthy Children's Fund in the spirit of prevention and family supports and other pieces of the county, that it's good to be informed about all of it. So same with FAB, like that's why my category went there. If we get a FAB update at some point formally, right, we could think about what are the other pieces of work that make sense to have updates on, in addition to all of the ones you already have listed. So
I think then, in response to Jill's question, from the feedback we got today, we can clean up, and create the next draft of the calendar. And then I think we just need to put something really clear at the top that this is, it's a working calendar, like that we will adjust as things emerge. So, it's got, there's a lot of material. I think it's just where we're going to fit it all in.
I just have one other thought as Heather was talking. I just want to run by you all. Would it make sense to, in the calendar, have a place for priority topic updates? And those priorities are the 3 that the IPRTF chose for 2025. That's at the top of the calendar, the jail, the evaluation and performance measurement, and the diversion programs. We could have a slot on every agenda for any updates relevant to that, and that's where the FAB fits in under jail BCC. What do you think of that idea?
That makes sense to me. Seems like a good process move.
Okay.
We've kind of been
Some
doing that
flexibility.
when we used to just have that general justice project update kind of thing. That was kind of what we were doing. So that to more formalize that might be a good idea, Marty.
Okay.
Anything else for the good of the order? We have public comment. Jill, do we have anyone in the either in the conference room or online that would like to speak?
I don't see anyone in our conference room. We have a couple of attendees. If you would like to speak to the steering committee, please virtually raise your hand now. No hands are raised. Holly and Marty, if you have a minute after the meeting to chat, that would be great. Thank you.
Great.
All right, folks. Thank you again for being here, and we will talk later. We are adjourned.